back, fam. It's your girl QB in the house repping for Culturalist Theory. And since you all loved our top 10 hip-hop albums for 98, it's only right that we deliver its Gemini twin. So today we're giving you our top 10 R&B albums released between January 1st and December 31st, 1998. Before we jump in, no disrespect to the fellas, but the ladies were really giving it their all this year. Mariah had her stilettos firmly in the necks of singers all up and through the 90s, with 98 being one of the few years she did not release a studio album. Also, songwriter Diane Warren is just as much a part of this list as the performers she's written for, and by extension, her production partner David Foster. Since she's the only Diane to be spoken of, when we say Diane or Warren, just know that we're talking about this lady right here. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're feeling Tony good, go ahead and finesse that super thanks button too. Now that we've set the stage, y'all know what time it is. Number 10, Sparkle, self-titled. No matter how you feel about the man himself, the R. Kelly machine has done wonders for a plethora of artists, with Sparkle being no different. He laid the groundwork for a successful career right in her lap by writing and producing the entire self-titled project, while also minting her the first lady of his newly contract label, Rockland Records. The project included their #1 Hot 100 airplay duet, Be Careful, which, like the album itself, moved over 500,000 units. Follow-up single, The Intimate Friends, sampling It's Time to Move On, didn't fare nearly as well, but still a nice bop. There was a decent hip-hop and R&B collab with Cameron and Nature, Good Life, a lush cover of Minnie Riperton's Loving You, and a calculated weaving in of some Stevie on the bridge of Straight Up, as she unapologetically tells Boo #1 that she's rolling with Trick #2 instead. Sure, the likes of Vegas and Play On near the end don't hold it quite as well, but that's what the skip button's for. Kelly managed to largely avoid making her sound like a basic female extension of himself, unlike, say, what Keith Sweat did with Cut Close. Essentially, he had a potential second coming of Mary J. Blige in the palm of his hands, at least on paper. The 411 on her split with Kel's label was said to be creative differences, but to paraphrase her own song, she should have been careful what she asked for. Outside of the pair of Best of Both Worlds joint albums and Life soundtrack, Sparkle turned out to be the only solo artist to release an album on an ill-fated imprint. Sans any Kelly involvement, her second and final effort, Y2K's Told You So, lacked any redeeming qualities, leading to a swift and uneventful end to her musical career. Number 9, Monica, The Boy Is Mine. The youngest performer on this list, Miss Thing continued her trend of being the third in line to release her respective album when discussing Aaliyah, Brandy, and Monica. The Boy Is Mine arrived just over a month after Brandy's Never Say Never, which, spoiler alert, is gonna show up somewhere further up the list. It's impossible not to mention the latter two ladies together, being they both claimed their first #1 pop hit with the album's title track. Originally penned as a solo song, Monica was brought in after Brandy and Rodney Darkchild Jerkins already had it in the can. So no, there was no pre-existing beef between them. Although there was that one time. Well, we sure you already know about that. So let's move on to the rest of the album. Another #1 hit came courtesy of Jermaine Dupri produced The First Night, topping the Billboard 100 for 6 consecutive weeks. But wait, there's more. Her third single, cover song Angel of Mine, did exactly what the first two did and went to the top of the charts. So it's more of a reworking than a straight cover. And we have British girl group Eternal to thank. Gotta love this era of readily available info we're in now, because none of us knew that back in 98. Additional covers that came out nice include Right Here Waiting alongside 112 and Misty Blue, which, like Dolly Parton's I'll Always Love You, benefited from a little black girl magic. While not quite at the level they'd eventually reach, Outkast gave a rather lackluster 8 bars on Gonna Be Fine, and Take 'Em Back barely gets by with the help of an oft-used Sting sample, Shape of My Heart. However, like the album's beginning, Street Symphony, it ends on a high note. The Diane Warren penned, David Foster produced ballad For You I Will. Standing with her debut 95's Miss Thing, The Boy Is Mine would be Monica's only other Platinum Plus outing. Number 8, Deborah Cox One Wish. Clive Davis and his team know a good thing when they have it, and although this Toronto transplant made a fair enough splash with her gold-selling self-titled debut in the 9-5, this, as in this right here, is what they knew Deborah Cox had in her. Although factually incorrect, we know that when her name does get mentioned, your brain's automatically set to think of this inescapable, record-breaking hit that lives rent-free in your subconscious. And with superb runs like that, we can't blame you either. If you've heard her song Where Do We Go From Here before this, then you kind of already knew she had nobody supposed to be here bubbling underneath the surface. Anyhow, this Montel Jordan co-written hit wasn't supposed to hog the top spot of the Hot R&B and Hip Hop Songs chart for 14 weeks, but it did. It was also runner-up on the Billboard 100 for 8 weeks, but 2 other songs from 2 other albums we'll speak on later kept it from dual #1 runs. 112's It's Over Now rejects everything that the far more popular My Little Secret by Escape magnified, which is probably why it's so overlooked at the time. But since we're all older, we can appreciate them both just the same now. Fortunately, she had one more ace up her sleeve with the message that Positive K had approved way back in '92. We Can't Be Friends, featuring label mate and next frontman RL, was another memorable ballad that further cemented her brief legacy in '90s R&B, which also reigned atop the Hot R&B and Hip Hop Songs chart. Hitman for Hire Dark Child scored again with the album cuts I Never Knew and Just When I Think I'm Over You. September was also fitting, especially considering the project's arrival during said month. And being that Mariah wasn't going to give up a sequel to Someday, Warren and Foster gave Cox the next best thing and put One Day You Will at the end of One Wish. She would never again earn the platinum success or attention that her sophomore Starling brought her, but we've got to thank Davis for not shutting down this talent before she got to reach her peak. The hour needed to take this record in is well worth the time. Number 7, Whitney Houston, My Love Is Your Love. She didn't always give us albums, but when she did, they were usually pretty freaking epic. Studio album number 4 from Whitney Elizabeth Houston, My Love Is Your Love, did not disappoint. However, during the 8-year gap between Houston projects, a younger, newer contemporary diva by the name of Mariah Carey had already managed to produce enough hits to deliver a #1's album literally the day before My Love arrived. Counterattack perhaps? Well, considering that Carey used some of her downtime in '98 to complete a Babyface pen duet with Houston entitled When You Believe from the Prince of Egypt soundtrack, we're gonna have to dead that theory. And while we were fortunate to even receive a collaboration between 2 such megastars, we'd be lying if we didn't say we'd go with the Monica and Brandy duet over this one every time. As for the trio of Houston, Faith Evans, and Kelly Price on Heartbreak Hotel, now that's what we call a classic. Continuing with her fully modernized sounds, all the big guns flooded the zone here because this is, after all, Whitney we're talking about. The Warren and Foster combo are behind I Learned From the Best, while Missy helped write, produce, and featured on In My Business. Some Haitian flavor in Only the Way Wyclef Can Bring is on the title track, and his secret but not so secret, Miss Hill added her touch to the hidden cut, I Was Made to Love Him, a reworking of Stevie's similarly titled tune. Dark Child wasn't going to be left out of the Whitney spectacle either, contributing 4 tracks, most notably It's Not Right But It's Okay, and that upbeat jam, If I Told You That. The latter was later turned into a duet with George Michael, being that the originally scheduled King of Pop didn't slide through. We could definitely hear him sprinkling his ad-libs all over this one. Whitney's vocals shine throughout this hour-long session, and with the only lulls in quality being found near the end. Despite not putting up numbers like her previous works, 10 million in sales worldwide, with 4 million of those coming domestically, there's still a lot of love for My Love. Number 6, Kelly Price, Soul of a Woman. Kelly Sherelle Price, born exactly 1 year after fellow soul singer Jill Scott, was no stranger to the game by the time she arrived in the summer of '98 with Soul of a Woman. Singing her little heart out since the age of 2, eventually she found herself in the right place at the right time and became a mainstay as one of Mariah's backup singers for more than half a decade. After continuing to cut her teeth on numerous hip-hop tracks, most popularly for Big's Mo Money Mo Problems, Price was ready to show the world she was more than just a backup singer or a hook slayer. With writing credits across the project's entirety, KP inked a deal with the Isley Brothers, reinstated T-Neck Records, and immediately proceeded with breaking records of her own. Lead single Friend of Mine became the first song to top the R&B singles chart without a related video. Long-standing industry demons are more than likely why it was rolled out that way. However, that era was quickly reversed with a remix version featuring R. Kelly and Ron Isley in a very cinematic clip. The only other single release, Secret Love, should have gotten more shine than it did, but off the force of this trio of songs, the album went platinum status, and there was much more to keep listeners satisfied, including You Complete Me, Her, and the emotionally charged Don't Say Goodbye, which we declare the runner-up for the best song on this album. Snatching up 3T's Whatever You Want for the backdrop of the title track was also a good look. Y'all get the feeling that we really appreciate these guys. As for the not so good looking, Your Love featuring Lil C's and Kiss Test are subpar, and while we can certainly appreciate her church girl roots shining through on Lord of All and Take Me to a Dream, there's something missing that would keep them from staying on any kind of constant rotation. If this ranking was strictly on who had the best vocals, then Price would be right at the tip top. But either way, Soul of a Woman is a very respectable debut by this queen from Queens. Number 5, Faith Evans, Keep the Faith. Well, I'll be damned if we aren't going straight down the lineup of Heartbreak Hotel with this one. Like Deborah Cox before her, Evans too was back in the mix for round 2 following their respective 1995 debuts. Sandwiched in between Houston's and Cox's 1998 offerings, Keep the Faith arrived in October on the heels of of lead single Love Like This. And in the case of Puff being Puff, Sean inserted himself all in the song and the video for the next single, All Night Long. It was hot, so yeah, we knew that he must have did it. But if you learned anything from Faith from her first album, then you know that ballads are really where she shines most. However, all the bedroom type tunes that helped you create your offspring in 1995 are all but absent here. No worries though, because love is still the message across solid album tracks including Caramel Kisses featuring 112, My First Love, and Never Gonna Let You Go. We're starting to wonder if Warren had a clause in her contracts stipulating her songs were to close out any given artist's album, as Lately I gives just about as many feels as Baby Girl's grand finale on 1 in a Million did. So that's certainly not one to be skipped over. Nor are the woefully short interludes Tears Away and Stay. No, we've already done a whole entire video on her catalog, and if you somehow missed that too, we'll leave a link to it so you can fix that mistake expeditiously. Number 4, Escape, Traces of My Lipstick. With closest competitors SWV having dropped their third album the year prior and fellow A-Town ladies TLC being on hiatus, the lane was wide open for this quartet. When they popped the clutch to shoot the gap, they ended up riding off into the sunset instead. Fortunately, prior to their detour, they took the direct route to our hearts with Traces of My Lipstick. But before we get into any of that, here's a little story about addition by subtraction.
Timmy had 2 apples and Sally had 2 apples, and they put them together. How many would they have?
3.
Okay, not quite.
So it's never been uncommon for any given song on an R&B album to also have a reprise version near the end. If you have to ask and you made it this far into the list, I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, in this instance, it's an All About Me intro and reprise. If you can recall, you heard Foxy Brown's voice near the end of either version, and maybe you thought to yourself, why is that all we ever hear from her on the album? Truth be told, her originally recorded vocals, along with JD's, were cut from the final version, so the album could avoid being slapped with the dreaded parental advisory sticker. My oh my, how times have changed. So instead of simply editing Foxy's dirty lyrics, the song was chopped into the album's intro and outro. And there you have it, fam, addition by subtraction. You can find that unedited track on SoundCloud, by the way. Turns out that was the right call because it would have certainly thrown off the overall central vibes of the album. With a prime example courtesy of our new bestie Diane. If you don't have goosebumps by the time these ladies finish with this one, seriously, go see a doctor right now, cause something's wrong. Ditto for their cover rendition of Atlantic Star's Am I Dreaming, that features Keith Sweat and Old School. Let us know down in the comments which version you favor the most. We feel that it's criminal here that there's no video for the final official single, Softest Place on Earth, or that the emotional All I Need never got commercial exposure. On the flip side, Late Night Creepin' ain't never sounded more appealing or normalized than it has on the lead single My Little Secret. No need to wonder where the kids get it from, because clearly they got it from their mama. All jokes aside though, the song just recently went gold, like as of March 2023. While Lipstick itself was certified platinum after a little over a year. Great vocals and harmonies are timeless, and the traces of them are smeared all over this one. As for where life took the group and the Sisters with Voices trio SWV alike, a viewing of their shared 6-part miniseries, The Queens of R&B, tells you all you need to know and then some. Alright, real quick, before we approach the podium placers, there's really only an eagle's leg length of honorable mentions we have for R&B albums that could have potentially made our list. And here they go. As for Dru Hill's sophomore effort into the Drew, too many skips in the top half to even be up for consideration. Sorry, not sorry. But feel free to chop it up down in the comments about some of your own possible selections for this list. And now, back to the program. Number 3, R. Kelly, R. The element of surprise, MP The Last Don, My Homies. This is just a taste of some of the dual disc hip-hop albums that released in '98. And being the musical prodigy that he is, R. Kelly felt that there was no better time than now to offer up his own double album, especially since nobody else in the R&B world was bold enough to do it in the 90s. Realizing it would be quite the undertaking, he brought in some additional hands to help shoulder the production duties, mainly Poke and Tone, better known as the Trackmasters. The resulting product was a hip-hop and R&B chart-topping 8 million plus selling effort that only fueled Kelly's career even higher than it already was. None of that would matter if the music couldn't stand the test of time, and taking the final podium position on this list is a clear statement that remains a non-issue for this project. Sure, there's an interlude here and cutting room floor track there that we could do without, but that comes with the territory when giving consumers nearly 2 hours of music all at once. Saying he blessed the day that R&B music meets hip-hop, the Windy City singer fully embraces his rhyme-spitting counterparts this go-round. However, even with Foxy Brown having no holds or words barred on Dollar Bill, it serves as a lesson of what not to do when mixing the two. This is also echoed on his collab with fellow Chi-Towners Crucial Conflict on Ghetto Queen. Handling both art forms himself on I'm With You yields better results, and hell, we'll even rock with that opera interlude for just how novel it is. Trackmasters pull a Sean Combs and flip Surface's 80s hit Happy until Only the Loot Can Make Me Happy, then turn around and give us We Ride, an unexpected posse cut featuring Nori, Cameron, and Jay-Z over a smoothed out track. Eventually, the production duo, Hove and Kells, would build on this for their full-length collaboration The Best of Both Worlds in 2002. Undoubtedly though, R shines its brightest when Robert leaves his emotions unfiltered, allowing them to flow across their lush arrangements. When a Woman's Fed Up, If I Could Turn Back the Hands of Time, Get Up on a Room, and Half on a Baby remain repeat ready. Etc. and Looking for Love are hidden gems. Down Low Double Life is a third entry to the Down Low saga. Sans Ron Isley and the Grammy-winning I Believe I Can Fly was officially included here as well. You know, in case you lost or never bothered to cop that Space Jam soundtrack 2 years prior. Only a toddler's handful of double R&B albums have come to pass since, with even Kelly unable to outdo himself on 2004's Happy People You Saved Me. Number 2, Brandy, Never Say Never. Having clearly established herself as a child star between her self-titled debut album and helming 90s sitcom Moesha, Brandy Norwood would subject her fans to the typical superstar wait of many years in between projects. After pacifying fans with a few soundtrack joints here and there, she would finally deliver her sophomore album in June of '98 entitled Never Say Never. They say that good things come to those who wait, and this project is living proof of that mantra. Not only did she activate her pen on almost half of the project, she'd also dabble in the production on a few tracks alongside main producer Rodney Darkchild Jerkins, who go on to become her most utilized heat maker. If we're being frank though, and it hurts us to say, everything Monica's album did, Brandy's did better. Come for us in the comments if you want. Let's see. Hip Hop and R&B collab. MA$E entered the chat on the super catchy Sitting on Top of the World. Happy is one that shouldn't be missed as far as familiar sample flips go. Speaking on the ubiquitous Warren ballad, Monica's Stellar For You I Will was technically on the Space Jam soundtrack first, but Have You Ever gives feels that Monica's Inside could only dream of. Not to mention, it became B's second Billboard 100 chart topper behind their shared hit The Boy Is Mine, which also appears here. But wait, there's more. The music video of the former even garnered a VMA nod for the best R&B video, losing out to the force created by the same person who's atop this list. Sprinkle in some more solid album tracks such as the title track, Angel in Disguise, You Don't Know Me Like You Used To, plus the unexpected but just as nice closeout cover, Everything I Do It For You, and we've got a 5x platinum classic on our hands. Sure, Brandy's given us more good stuff since, but at this point, we're about ready to say she'll never outshine what she did here when she was freshly entering adulthood. And if we ever reshuffle our Brandy ranking, this one might creep a few slots higher. Number 1, Lauryn Hill, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. To no one's surprise, whatever category Miss Lauryn Hill is eligible for, more often than not, she's coming out on top. This list right here is no different. Blowing after the dissolution of her group The Fugees and eclectic solo drop by former bandmate Wyclef Jean, the summer of '98 was all for the taking by this chocolate girl wonder. It was no secret by now that Elle Boogie could sing just as well as she could drop tight, thought-provoking bars, so there was no telling what to truly expect from her first album for Self. The end product was more R&B than it was hip-hop, mixed in with a plethora of elements from other genres. How else would you explain her racking up 10 Grammy nods for the 48th annual award show, including competing against herself in the best R&B song category? The tracks on hand here would be Doo Wop That Thing versus the song she wrote for the legendary Aretha Franklin, A Rose Is Still a Rose. And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention she was also nominated in the rap category for Lost Ones. Miss Hill left the ceremony with a trophy for each finger on her right hand that night. Diving even deeper in the Grammy rabbit hole, hidden track Can't Take My Eyes Off You, a remake of the 1967 original written by two guys named Bob, was the first hidden track to be Grammy nominated. Google or YouTube the origins of hidden tracks if that concept is lost on you. Anyway, what turned out to be Hill's lone studio album was a magnum opus, rendering skip buttons useless, with album cuts being just as strong as the singles. I Used to Love Him was a perfect blend of R&B and hip-hop, featuring the queen of hip-hop soul herself, Mary J. Blige. Superstar was a guitar-laced batch of food for thought that was sung and spit with the smoothness of a brand brand new Range Rover before taking us all to church on the title track. Matter of fact, y'all already know the whole album is S tier, so rather than going through any more of the track list, we're just gonna share one of her many lines that slaps you in the face in hopes of poking your internal woke button. This one specifically for the ladies.
Girls sell their souls because it's sin. Look at where you be in. Hair weaves like Europeans. Fake nails done by Koreans. Come again.
Miss Education was the first solo female rap album to be included in the National Recording Registry in 2014 and became a diamond certified seller circa 2021. Only Cardi B comes in at a very distant second with 4 million sold on her respective solo debut, 2018's Invasion of Privacy. However you want to classify this record, 1998 belonged solely to Lauryn Noel Hill. And that right there is going to do it for your girl QB here at Culturalist Theory. We welcome all your thoughts and comments on this trip down memory lane. And as always, remember to hit that bell so you can be notified of our latest and greatest list. We've touched on most of these artists mentioned here already, so keep the nostalgia rolling with this playlist we've got for you up top.